Sorry, I'm going to wait till it's exactly 7. Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Would you please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Alderman Lauer,
Here.
Alderman Sage,
Here.
Alderman Milamwe,
Here.
Alderman Stern,
Here.
Alderman Painter,
Here.
Alderman Schmidt,
Here.
Alderman Black,
Here.
Alderman Howman, Alderman Fruin,
Here.
Mayor Redden.
Here. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with public comment, and we have 6 people who have requested public comment, and according to our ordinance, people are allowed 3 minutes apiece. We actually, according to our ordinance, have a maximum of 15 minutes, so I'm not going to be draconian if you do the math, but we're going to have to be tight about the 3 minutes. So we're going to try to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to come forward and address the council. And just as everyone knows, it is not common practice for us to engage in any conversation with people who are coming in, and we as much as possible, unless there's something we can handle immediately, try to stick to that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Patricia Martin. Would you come forward? And again, we'd like you to please stick to the 3 minutes. Good evening, Patricia.
Good evening. Thank you. I'd like to talk about a meeting I had recently with the public safety group of the McLean County Planning Commission. Our subject was entitled Awareness and Preventative Services for Vulnerable Generations, and we focused on the elderly, especially dealing with abusive situations that can develop in public facilities. I met for the first time Executive Director Michael O'Donnell of the East Area Agency on Aging, and representing PATH, Assistant Director Catherine Johnson, and Adult Protective Services Supervisor Jessica Burry, and Basu and Scott Fowler of the group were also there. We exchanged ideas about how to better integrate this subject within the group's comprehensive plan, the actual work itself to be done by individual agencies. One possible challenge, for example, due to the overload of available information, would be to designate one agency as a central coordinating body for online data. In addition, a collection of paper copies could be put on file in a central facility like the police station, PATH, and the library to be used as required. Our overall goals would still be to develop awareness of difficult situations and to establish practices to improve them. As I've mentioned before, I'm most interested in sensitivity training at both staff and managerial levels to further limit such situations from occurring, and I'm pleased that representatives on the county board and at the council here agree with this and are hopefully willing to work toward it, and I would hope for a county-wide program of sensitivity training, which I think would be fantastic. I would also hope that hiring procedures would be amended and made more stringent as needed to ensure that both prospective and current employees and administrators are aware of appropriate and inappropriate behavior. Perhaps online tests like the Open Meeting Acts test could also be used for such employees to further emphasize the requirements of the jobs that they're applying for. So these are some of the issues we talked about. A relevant footnote, I've been attending Connect Transit meetings to talk about my interests and concerns there, and recently was told by Executive Assistant Julie Phillips that additional customer service training is being developed, including devices to observe the drivers' and passengers' behavior more thoroughly. Again, a welcome step in the correct direction. Just this morning, a passenger disturbance occurred on one of the Green Line buses and was handled with considerable tact and courage by the driver. I'd say overall we have an excellent transit system. There are also safe place signs on the doors, which means that buses will take people with problems to areas where they can be helped. And again, I want to thank you for your time and for your support.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in under budget. Mr. Bruce Meeks. Bruce? Oh, there he is.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your attention. I'm very disappointed in the public comment that was done by our mayor and our city manager related to the situation with the agenda. I won't go any further than that tonight, but I'm very disappointed, and I'm sure my schedule was affected, and I'm sure there's quite a few aldermen that were affected. Both elected officials from each ward and citizens should be allowed by written request to the entire council to have an item or presentation for at least the committee of the whole. The current controls that are being practiced is quite restricting in that it's not allowing better engagement, free public flow of ideas. This culture change is important to our city to move forward, to move onward, and to move upward. As a governing body, this is more public, open, and transparent. No longer should all the agenda decision-making process be left to the mayor and city manager. No more choices done by straw polls by phone on the weekends. No more phone choices during the week. No more emails back and forth trying to find out what your position might be in an agenda item, whether it should be on the agenda or not. This is part of the meeting process. This is public policy. This is fully inclusive and should be done in a voting process. This is a positive new direction, and it does align itself with the Robert's Rules of Order, which you have taken extra steps as a governing body to actually put it in the city code. And when are you all going to get your Robert's Rules of Order training that I do believe the McLean County State's Attorney has recommended to our corporate counsel? Going forward with the budget, I would highly recommend that you all get Robert's Rules of Training, since that's the one we're supposed to be using. End the retreat. We don't need them anymore. Take those 2 days. Let's do some work sessions in this council chambers with open and transparency. If you go to the den, guess what? We don't have this technology. Isn't that convenient? It was kind of like the Osborne room for budget workshops, which thankfully Karen and a few of the other members of the council said, let's have it down here at the City Hall. This is City Hall. The video streaming is here. Let's be open. Let's be transparent, and let's do it here. I think this would help build trust with the citizens, and one thing Mayor Renner has said, the citizens don't really trust us. Let's continue with this universal consistency with live streaming, with openness and transparency, and let's get the budget done. Let's start now. Oh, that's right. We were supposed to start it that next day after the budget was passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alton Franklin.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington, Illinois. I'd like to talk about something that is very, very important to me. We've had a recent series of events that have brought to mind something that I was raised with, something that I live with. I was taught from a very early age that a man's word is his bond. Integrity is an important thing, folks. It's more than a word to me. It's a way of life. I don't need to hear that somebody whose responsibility it really wasn't was at fault or forgot or made a mistake. If I make a mistake, you're going to know about it, because I'm going to tell you when I discover that I've made a mistake. I'll apologize for it and do what I can to atone for it. I don't sit there and try to palm it off on somebody else. I don't sit there and try to make excuses. I recognize my failures, I address those failures, and I grow stronger as a result. I have people that have a deep and abiding faith in me because they know that what I say is what I mean, and what I mean, I do. We need to move on in a way much more honest and forthright. That's a big part of trust and integrity. Just sidestepping things going around them and sometimes not saying anything at all accomplishes exactly that, nothing at all. There reaches a point that you have to decide what is important to you. And if you can't be honest enough with yourself, you can't be with anybody else. You have to be able to bring up the things that are important. You have to address what you see as the most, as the highest priority items. You don't sit there and push things off. That's a form of dishonesty. That's saying, yeah, we're going to address it when we find the time. You're never going to find the time. For important things in life, you have to make the time. You have to step out with it. You have to step up to the plate and be a rational, mature human being and recognize that those people around you are the same and you can deal with them on that basis. But if there's no trust, you're not going to get anything accomplished. And you can't have trust without integrity individually and as a group. I would hope that we can learn from the mistakes of the past so that we are not doomed to repeat them. And in the words of my father, in the most abhorrent thing I ever had in my life told to me, I am disappointed.
Rick Heiser.
Good evening. On tonight's Bloomington City Council agenda is a request from A1 Liquor Mart Incorporated to allow a PAS liquor license for sale of packaged alcohol for consumption off the premises at the address of the current Pub 1 at 505 West Market Street. At first glance, this seems like an easy decision. Simply the exchange of ownership from one business to another, both selling alcohol. But there is much more at stake. A convenience store selling alcohol would have customers of all ages, and loitering has historically been a problem at such businesses in the area. This is not the same as for a bar where customers, by definition, are those of legal drinking age. The protection for the character of the neighborhood between the two business models are simply not the same. But even more significant to this decision is the inevitable proliferation of new requests for additional liquor licenses along the Market Street corridor. Pops, the former Red Fox store at 918 West Market, has already requested a liquor license for their establishment. Remember, Market Street Grocery already holds a liquor license and is only 2 blocks to the east of the current Pub 1 toward downtown. Market Street is a primary gateway entrance to the city from the west, and a change of this magnitude will not enhance the corridor as it is, or future plans to make it more attractive as an entrance for our city. This is an at-risk neighborhood, but as you know, there are many projects underway to stabilize and upgrade the area to make it more family-friendly and a stronger asset to nearby downtown and the ongoing revitalization of downtown. As a 28-year resident of the West Side, I ask that you deny this application and send it back to the Liquor Commission with the request that the applicant revise their business model. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Arnold.
Well, good evening. Ever vigilant the task of citizens in a representative democracy, your citizen neighbors of West Bloomington, specifically Gridley, Allen Prickett, and Old Town neighborhood associations, are before you to address the decade-long experiment of holding liquor license holders within these neighborhoods to a higher, more restrictive standard. This level playing field for profiteers is dearly appreciated by most all residents within this densely populated area of the city. Since so many of us conduct our daily business on foot, by bike, motorized wheelchair, or by bus, Positive results have prevailed in our quality of life, particularly through lowered crime rates, reduction of nuisances, and the decrease of pedestrian harassment. Today, your agenda includes a grant for profiteering closely watched by the many other convenience stores along this residential corridor. As residents, we hope our needs continue to take precedence over and above a few individuals' financial gain. If you feel that this grant, item 7J, must be made to A1 Liquor Mart, please adhere to all the restrictions provided by the Liquor Commission. Closely monitor this business's compliance and community impact for your neighbor's sake. Thank you for your decade of consistency. We thank the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, is it Donna Balin? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. It's Bolin, I'm sorry?
Yes, Donna Bolin.
Donna? Okay, thank you, Donna.
Good evening. It's my understanding that the City Council has the authority to hold a developer accountable for completion of a punch list under the ordinance 24, Chapter 24. And as a representative of the Fox Hollow homeowners, I'd like the council to consider adding to the ordinance a limited time frame to complete the list and some consequences if they don't do so. An ordinary citizen who is issued a citation from the city is required to comply within a limited amount of time or be fined, and developers should be held to the same standard. Any responsible developer should not be concerned about having a limited time frame added. A perfect example of why the council should consider this proposal is the development of a serious erosion problem around the broken drainage grate at the FES detention outlet on the west side of Savannah Street. As a result of dereliction of duty by the developer to repair and maintain the flood control system, it has been rendered non-functional and dangerous. I personally contacted the developer annually beginning in 2012, and resolution was promised, but the health hazard has worsened. In my frustration, I called the city in July to report the problem and learned from the Director of Public Works that the city had already issued multiple citations to this developer spanning 9 years, which have been ignored because there's no time limit assigned for compliance. It's understood that regulations are relaxed for developers in order to grow the city, but there is a cost. Once the city assumes the responsibility for maintenance in Fox Hollow, it also inherits the mess left behind by the developer. The financial burden for cleaning up the detention basin will ultimately fall on the citizens rather than on the developer where it belongs. In this particular case, where the developer shunned its responsibility for 9 years, even while qualifying for a stormwater fee credit, the consequence should include requirement to ensure that the entire storm drainage system be fully functional according to EPA standards, which not only include repair of the drain and the erosion that's there, but also the removal of overgrown vegetation and silt accumulation before the basin is deeded to the city. This work should be done solely at the developer's expense. And finally, I'd like to thank Jim Karsh and also the engineering department for all the hard work they've done to look into this issue.
Donna, if I could, normally we don't have an interchange, and certainly we don't want to counterpoint, but if I could ask you, do you have access to the internet?
Yes, I do.
Would you send me an email on this tomorrow?
Okay.
And then I will respond, and then we'll go forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I also was remiss, I'm not, Donna, I'm sorry. Our very own state representative, Dan Brady, is in the audience, and we just want to recognize Dan. Thank you for coming. Thanks. And as we move right along, one of the really great parts of the job is that we get to have recognitions and appointments, and at this point we have oath of some police officers. If I could ask Madam Clerk to come forward, and our police officers, and if family is here and you want to take pictures, feel free. This is your city hall. Come on around behind us and take whatever pictures or whatever you'd like. Tracy? Oh, Brendan? Come on down, Chief. Let's see.
Thank you, Council. and other distinguished guests and great citizens of Bloomington. Very proud to have 5 officers who have completed a very rigorous field training program and probationary period to get here this evening. And as you see by the turnout of our officers, we're glad to welcome them to the BPD family and to have them working to serve and protect you. I'll have them come up as they call their names, and I'll speak about them briefly since we have 5. Officer John Furman, date of hire April 1st, 2013. Present here tonight is John's wife Heather and mother Leanne. John graduated from Illinois State University with a bachelor's degree in marketing. He worked for the Logan County Sheriff's Office for almost 2 years before coming to BPD. John is also the Public Relations Officer for the PBPA Unit 21. Officer Caleb Zimmerman, date of hire April 1st, 2013. Present tonight is Caleb's father Dennis, his mother Mary Beth, brother Jake, nephew Dane, niece Maggie, and sister-in-law Betsy. Caleb graduated from Roanoke Benson High School and Southern University at Edwardsville. He worked at Zimmerman Builders, Inc. prior to joining BPD. His hobbies are hockey, snowboarding. He was involved in Copple in the Top and also Torch Run for Special Olympics. Those are both related. Pedro Diaz, date of hire April 15th, 2013. Present here tonight with Pedro is his wife Meredith, daughter Viviana, and in-laws David and Gladys Mercier. I got it right, thank you. Pedro graduated from Rolling Meadows High School in 1999. Following high school, he served in the U.S. Marine Corps until 2003, assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines in Camp Pendleton. He went on to attend Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, graduating with a bachelor's degree in business management in 2007. Pedro worked for the Hanover Park Police Department beginning in 2009 until joining the Bloomington Police Department in April. Officer Bryce Jansen, date of hire April 1st, 2013. Present tonight are Bryce's fiancee, Rachel Schrader, his mother and father, Roger Jansen, his mom, Kathy Freitag, and his stepfather, Leon Freitag. Bryce graduated from Metamora Township High School and received his bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University. Prior to coming to the Bloomington Police Department, he worked as an EMT in fire department with the Logan Trivoli Fire Protection District. As a hobby, he enjoys hunting and fishing. Officer Tyrell Klein, date of hire April 14, 2013. Present tonight are Tyrell's wife Carrie, son Gavin, and daughter Grace. Tyrell graduated from Clinton High School and Richmond Community College in Decatur. He enjoys golfing, fishing, and spending time at home with his family. He has received 2 letters of commendation since he's been here at the Bloomington Police Department. Thank you. Or it doesn't count.
I'm gonna ask you guys. Up. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Caleb Zimmerman,
Having been appointed to the position
having been appointed to the position
of Police Patrol Officer
of Police Patrol Officer
in the City of Bloomington
in the City of Bloomington
and the County of McLean,
in the County of McLean,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the position of Police Patrol Officer
of the position of Police Patrol Officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you. Congratulations. Are you Tyrell? Caleb. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed this. There we are. Caleb. And Drew. Thank you. And there we go. And you're Bryce. Bryce. Congratulations. Great. Awesome. And Tyrell. That's right. And congratulations. And last but not least, John. See ya. Take care. And thank you so much. How you doing?
I do it all the time. No worries.
One thing, it's certainly easy to see why we have such an incredible police force, just understanding their backgrounds. Most of our police officers have degrees. They've served in other law enforcement capacities, and many times even in the military. We're really blessed to have about 125 people protecting our city of 80,000. So again, this is a great day. Now we've got a couple of other proclamations here, as I use the glasses that Chief Kimmerling provided me. So I don't look like, as I think several people had suggested, a total mayoral dork. So I wonder if I could have Tom Daberreiner come forward, please. Tom? And we have a proclamation here declaring October 2014 to be Community Planning Month. Tom, come on over, please. Come on down here. Okay. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places, and whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, and whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation, and whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Bloomington, and whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by the professional community planners of the city of Bloomington and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim October 2014 as Community Planning Month. Tom, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Our next proclamation, do we have, I don't see Esau Peterson here. Is it Denise Williams from the Planning Commission? Oh, please come forward then. Thank you. And I'll go ahead and read this. Not quite as many whereases and ands. Okay. So a proclamation declaring November 2014, that is next month, to be Bloomington Board of Election Commissioners Month. Whereas on November 3rd, 1914, even I wasn't around that long, the citizens of the city of Bloomington, Illinois, cast their ballots in favor of establishing a Board of Election Commissioners in the city of Bloomington. And whereas on November 18th, 1914, the first meeting was held by said board naming Charles Agel, chairman, Ned Dolan, vice chairman, and Ed Carroll, secretary. And whereas the Board of Election Commissioners has served the citizens by administering the voter registration records and elections for the city of Bloomington with fairness, accuracy, and in a nonpartisan manner since its establishment. And whereas the citizens of the city of Bloomington recognize and appreciate the service of the Board of Election Commissioners in the democratic process as the foundation of government in our community and nation. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the city of Bloomington, do proclaim November 2014 as City of Bloomington Board of Election Commissioners Month. Congratulations. Thank you. Now we move right along to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda has quite a few items, and based on my ESP and political clairvoyance, I suspect that there's at least one item that we want to have removed from the consent agenda. Are there any items that we want to have removed from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to remove 7J, the liquor license for Pub 1.
Okay. 7J, excuse me, this pen, I got two pens that aren't writing. Item 7J, are there other items, thank you, that we want to have removed?
Mayor, I would like to remove 7C.
7C and 7J. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that. Go ahead, Tony.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Alderwoman Painter and second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Okay,
And
Jim?
Mayor, with regard to both the consent and regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in each of these specific agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if we could go ahead. So a vote would be to approve these consent agenda items with the exception of items 7C and 7J. Okay. Two items removed.
There was also one that was removed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is, I'm sorry,
I came in there.
7N, the land trust.
Okay, and that's just removed.
Right, at the request of the petitioner.
Okay, and that is with the exception of item 7N, as in Nancy, and it's actually the very end here, okay? Any questions? All right. The motion carries 9-0. Madam Clerk, there are no nays to announce. Okay. All right. Now, we'll start out in alphabetical order rather than the order in which they were pulled. Item 7C, Alderman Fruin, did you have concerns or questions?
Thank you. Trying to find the staff response here. It's close by.
Okay.
I thank the staff for the additional clarification they provided on this and the progress that's underway. I think this range probably has been around for more than 20 years. A lot of things have changed since then, to include a opening of a new range in town, private range, and also we've got other changes that have occurred during that time. If I was going to try to emphasize one point tonight, that would be that whenever we have the opportunity to regionalize things, that we do that. So that's the use of this range by other police agencies, etc. And I'd like to take that further, whether it's police or fire training tower or our Miller Park Zoo or whatever it is. There's things that we have that are not solely used by the city of Bloomington. So, and it is documented in here that the town of Normal and McLean County are contributing to this, to my estimation, a very small amount. I think it's $16,000 total. But I think it's so critical as we try to go forward that we regionalize as many of these things as we can and have cost sharing, expenses, revenue, the whole thing. And so I think staff is working toward that. And I think there's things that come up on a continual basis that really warrant us changing our model and trying to get more entities together at the table. And this is a classic example. So I appreciate the work that's being done. And with that said, and I probably should have started with this, but with that said, I'll make a motion that the agenda item be approved as is.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Lauer. Okay, just as an aside, on my 12 years on the McLean County Legislature, I can tell you that we always thought it was a good deal from that perspective. So now I'm on this side, and I don't want it to be as much of a good deal, right? Okay, go ahead. And so if you're voting, aye would be in favor of this. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. Madam Clerk, there are no nays to announce. Okay. Moving right along then to item 7J, and I will turn to Alderwoman Schmidt. You had some concerns.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I realized at the Liquor Commission hearing regarding this license that you didn't have an outpouring of concerns expressed by the neighborhood. They were conveyed by the president of the Gridley Allen Prickett Neighborhood Association, Dennis Arnold, who made a number of excellent points. Since the time that this was approved by the commission and brought forward to the council, I think all of us have received a number of emails from people, and I've certainly been contacted by individuals who are very concerned about the proliferation of not only this liquor license, but I think we heard during public comment the concerns that other establishments will look at this one and say, if they get one, then why not me? Tomorrow evening, for example, at 4 o'clock, you have on your Liquor Commission agenda a liquor license request for Pops, which was pulled many years ago following a shooting there. I will simply refer to the findings for creation of new license that I think have been underscored by the neighborhood. First of all, that the creation of a license is necessary for public convenience of the residents, and I don't think that anyone believes that that's true, particularly with Market Street Grocers just 2 blocks away. We don't know what the layout of this establishment would be, and I certainly appreciate the fact that a business isn't going to spend a lot of money doing layout until they know that they have all of the licensing they need. But nevertheless, it's in a form-based code area, and that's extremely important to Greeley, Allen, Prickett, and the West Side. And also considering the impact of the establishment on the location. West Bloomington Revitalization Project has worked for many years now to improve West Bloomington, and now we have the West Bloomington Housing Collaborative, which brings in Mid-Central Community Action and Habitat along with WBRP with a $1.5 million Attorney General's grant to improve West Bloomington, and I do not see that this is going to be an improvement. I will stop there, but I would like to make a motion if I could. I'd like to make a motion that we deny this license.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Black. And before we, just as a quick clarification, this is just a point of information from the Liquor Commission. When this was heard, we did have 2 people come forward speaking against, and I think there was someone else who was concerned, and that's why there were some restrictions that are put in this. And that is, it's also, by the way, not an additional liquor license. I think if it were an additional liquor license, it would have been a totally different story. I think from our perspective, we heard, okay, we don't have an outpouring of people from the neighborhood, at least the Liquor Commission saying no. Some of the concerns that we had were about single serves. So we said no alcohol, that is beer under 40 ounces, so not single serves. We also said you couldn't have alcohol, that is sort of the little containers that people might drink and then loiter. We also said that it was mandatory that they have video surveillance cameras on the building's exterior, and that, of course, because there's form-based code in Gridley, Allen, Prickett, that they had to have that approved by the city. So essentially at the Liquor Commission, if there's not an outpouring of people, then we can hardly turn something down, right? So I think we all recognize that this was an issue. Had it been a new liquor license, not changing an establishment from a tavern into a convenience store or a tavern into a grocery store, it would have been a fundamentally different issue, especially along the Market Street corridor. Market Street corridor and downtown are areas that we're watching very carefully and very closely in the Liquor Commission. And frankly, at the end of the day, if there is a disconnect between the Liquor Commission and the City Council, it's my fault, right? And that's one of the things that I promise. There's a few things that I can promise that I can actually make sure that I deliver on uniformly, and that is we have only 3 liquor commissioners. And before we go through some things that seem like they're controversial, I talk to our council to get a sense of the council and see what they can live with in terms of rewriting the liquor code or other things that we've done. We want to make sure there's no disconnect between what the Liquor Commission does and what the City Council, our elected officials, want. If there does become a serious disconnect, it's my fault. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Anyway, that's the decision process that the Liquor Commission went through. I think if we knew that there was more opposition, there may have been a very different outcome. So that's just as a background. So do others want to speak to this? Alderwoman Stearns.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, I appreciate the residents and neighbors who've come out. This reminds me a little bit of Price Right, which I kind of went straight through the Liquor Commission and yet was adamantly opposed, and understandably so, by the neighborhood. I think, again, it speaks to the fact that people come to City Council. Not everybody can make it to the Liquor Commission, but this is where they figure it's going to happen, so this is where they are, and that's great. yeah, the Market Street Pub 1, a lot of us who grew up, or some of us who grew up here remember it as Boylan's. It was an ice cream parlor where some of our parents, mine included, dated. A wonderful spot, and in a great neighborhood, an absolutely great middle class, vibrant, thriving, wonderful neighborhood with a school and all kinds of good things. So it's very, very sad. Hard to see, some of the activity in the neighborhood today. As one gentleman said, at risk, yes, indeed it is. So I think if, instead of looking at one of our goals, grow the local economy or sustain businesses, if we were looking at the one that says partner with neighbors, strengthen property values in neighborhoods, maybe, this would not be here where it is. But no, I can't support this either. I realize it's not a new license, but here's our opportunity. It's someone new applying. When this happens in these at-risk neighborhoods where some people are really striving for something more, livable and safer, God bless them, every single one of them, because I can't imagine these neighborhoods without them. So let's support them. No, I don't think this is a good idea. Thank you.
Let me just, if I could just clarify one thing there, just on the positive side, we did see the general business plan, and given the fact that Pub 1 is not in very good shape, this is a significant amount of investment that the owners were offering to put into that area. And so I think there was some, certainly sentiment on the Liquor Commission, I think probably all three of us, that we do want to encourage some sort of investment into an older neighborhood. And anyway, yeah.
Well, I would second that as well. Mayor, certainly the economic aspect of this, and maybe if we had an established business that had a few years under its belt as a convenience store and grocery store offering fresh produce to the area, which is needed, we might have a little bit different outcome here. And it is unfortunate, but I think someone here has to mention the fact that there is a history of violence in the area, and there's a social aspect to that. It's a crying shame that a neighborhood like this has to come under this kind of scrutiny just because of a few bad actors. And really, it's a small, when you take a look at our entire city and even just the west side in its own, there are many, many, many very good long-term citizens in that area, and we're very proud of them. But we do have a history of a small group of individuals that may, and certainly does, lead us to this conclusion as well. And I think we need to look at some things that we can do to try to stem the tide in that area in terms of the violence. Thank you.
Now, if I could ask Alderwoman Schmidt, you had suggested something. Did you suggest that there might be something as a compromise, as suggestions to the investors, that they might do something different?
Actually,
for a
what I
business
was
model?
going to say was to underscore something that Rick Heiser said during public comment, which is that there would be open arms if this were to be actually a grocery store, and probably even a Kickstarter campaign going on behind it. So if there were a different business model where it worked with WBRP and Gridley Allen Prickett Old Town, it might have a different outcome.
Different outcome as opposed, because right now they're thinking the convenience store.
Just like Market
That's
Street
out
Grocer.
there.
And
Right,
I
that
think
it's sort of
that
cookie cutter, mostly a liquor store. That's what they're thinking.
yeah, alcohol, lottery tickets, that kind of thing, which is where you make a lot of money, but a grocery store would be very welcome.
So essentially, if this is not approved tonight, then one option might be for the potential investors to work with
To really
WPR.
work. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Alderman Black and then Alderman Fruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and actually thank you, Karen. That was one thing I was going to mention, is that that the feedback that we've gotten is that this could potentially turn into a really good model for a grocery store. And to me, I'll just be very brief, is that this is an example of where democracy works, where we listen to people and then we follow through on the actions that they desire. This was an overwhelming opposition to this. I mean, I think from the get-go, when I first got elected, this was one of the issues that was brought to my attention, and I think that we've done the right thing here. And there's a lot of complicated issues going on the west side, and I think that we need to do everything we can as a council to not perpetuate further issues and not overcomplicate it, so we can really address it and continue to make the west side thrive. So thank you.
Alderman Fruin.
Mayor, the conversation's already started, and I guess where I'm coming from is to see if there is any potential here for compromise. it's very clear that my voting record has been very supportive of the West Side, and I do appreciate the comments and the work that Dennis and Rick and Val have provided us. Very appreciative of that, and all the council members that are involved and the staff. So I hope my record is such that I am supportive of the West Side. A little bit of a challenge to that is that we've got a established business that's been there a long time, that's got a clean record, and I know they want to change their model. But if anybody was around 45 years ago, in some respects, you could say that was the college bar or the 500 and 600 block of Main Street. That tavern was very popular and very busy, and I don't remember any problems at that time. But I think it's a business, and I think we have to be careful balancing business with the neighborhood, and that's what we're talking about tonight, and also the opportunities that they have through more discussion if there's some potential compromise here. The thing that concerns me a little bit is they have a license now for, quote, a tavern, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So in some respects, we have to be a little bit careful that perhaps the existing license is less desirable than what it could be through a different classification, through a convenience store, if they would change their tavern model. So I want to be careful and help me remember the rules here, but if this is turned down, do they still have an opportunity to come back with a compromise or another approach? Because I'd hate to just shut the door on
See why
them.
they couldn't, Jeff, right? I mean,
Okay.
no, and especially if they work with West Side Revitalization,
Okay.
and in something that satisfies the neighborhood and is consistent with what we're doing.
And I guess that's my comment. One comment is that I hope there's still an open door that with more information with regard to what the model could be, what the building renovation could be, that maybe it's a win-win for both sides. So.
Sure. And if that happens, if they want me to come, they don't want me to come, I won't come. But if they want me to come and come to the meetings, I'm happy to do so as well. So, Alderman Sage?
Mayor, just wanted to say that I believe one of your major accomplishments has been the rebuilding of the relationship between the Liquor Commission and the City Council. And I appreciate that because that wasn't always the case. And so I didn't want folks to leave here tonight thinking that somehow, just because this, and as I recall, this may be the first situation where that's come up. I didn't want folks to leave here thinking that this is a real common occurrence because before you became mayor it was, and since you become mayor it's not. And so I know as an alderman I appreciate the engagement that you seek from the council on proposed liquor licenses and the issuances of those. So again, I wanted to just take a minute to just acknowledge that.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, if I could add one more comment.
Of course.
It was alluded to earlier about the license that's coming to the Liquor Commission either this week or next.
Tomorrow.
Okay. So I think this gives us a good opportunity to pause to say, what is our Liquor Commission, what is our city council position with regard to that area, whatever that means.
Right, right.
And make sure we don't get into this spot discussion. I think there needs to be a more global definition or description of what it is that we want or don't want. So
Sure.
good luck tomorrow.
Well, I think, I can tell you that a new license, because as liquor commissioner, I'm not supposed to be prejudicial, but for a new license, there's a very high burden, right? That would have an increase. So we will stay tuned, and if you want to come by, we don't serve popcorn, but we start at 4. So anyway, if you could go ahead and vote, I would be supportive of the motion to deny and in a sense send it back to the Liquor Commission. So it would be a motion to deny. A nay vote on this would be a motion to create the license. Okay. Well, actually, that's not true, right? A nay vote would mean we would defeat this and then we'd have a separate motion to create the license. I'm sorry. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce. Okay. And again, I would encourage the investors, if you're interested in continuing this and you want to work with West Side Bloomington Revitalization, I'm happy to help and come in any way I can. Or if you don't want me to come, I won't. But we would certainly, we want your investment. We want something that's an asset to the neighborhood, an asset to the community, and hopefully we can continue to work on that progress. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move right along to our regular agenda, and we have item A. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. No, N was pulled, though, permanently, right? Petitioners. We don't have anything. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah, we do move to item 8A, and then Jim Karch, you're going to be coming down, I believe, and we have a presentation on Illinois Department of Transportation IDOT multimodal plan for Bloomington Normal Area projects, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions and answers. So,
Mayor, if I can, let me
Yep.
just make a few introductory comments. This is a
course.
kind of a new step or new annual procedure we'd like to interject each year. Inasmuch as IDOT has a 6-year capital improvement plan or their transportation plan, our staff has been very diligent each year of attending their public meetings, as well as just on an ongoing basis having some good dialogue with IDOT's district. Let's see, which district we in?
5.
District 5. So there's a good working relationship. What we do want to do is kind of raise the level of exposure and council involvement in being part of and very formally recommending to IDOT each year, is there additional projects that are currently not on their 6-year capital transportation plan that we believe should be on that plan. It's a way for this council each year to kind of adopt a resolution or something that can be submitted that I think is going to carry a little more weight than just staff members. And as we talk about some of these projects tonight, we very much know that IDOT has limited funds, but I think we want to engage the council and have you play a part each year in helping to decide, is there additional priority projects that you want to see IDOT consider as part of their long-term plan. We also just thought it would be helpful tonight is just remind you of some of the collaboration between IDOT and the city of Bloomington on the maintenance of some of these roads as well as the traffic signals. So with that, I'll turn to Jim Karch, Public Works Director, to first address the multi-year transportation program.
Thank you, City Manager Hales. Mayor and City Council, we do come before you tonight and ask for your additional help this year. Just as the City Manager indicated, we'd like to put a little bit more of that council emphasis upon the projects that the city advocates for on this 6-year plan through the Illinois Department of Transportation. So what we'd like to do is go through some suggestions that staff has come up with, and then at the end, just ask for any comments and feedback. It is my hope to use significantly less than the presentation time allotted so we can move forward. So
it's my hope that you would do that too.
Figured you would appreciate that. Okay. So with that, there is an annual public meeting. This one is occurring. It is not just for local officials. Any of the city citizens can attend. The information is up on the screen. It is October 16th in the evening. And again, there's more information online. All of this information can be found in your packet. So what we're going to be doing is trying to, again, put this together. We're going to be mailing some resolution, hopefully, at the next council meeting. We'll be bringing this to the council for formal action. We'll take the input here and then put that into something for you to take action on next time and still be able to mail that within the November 14th time frame. So let's go down a few of the projects. We're going to talk about 5 specific areas. The first being Illinois Route 9 of Veterans Parkway, Empire. Empire and Veterans, this is a standard concern that we've heard over the years from many citizens. This is a 1970s design of an intersection. You had on the northeast quadrant, Holiday Knolls was built in the 60s. This intersection was designed in the 70s. In the 2000s, you had Veterans Parkway, the early 2000s, you had Veterans Parkway come through and be redesigned, but the overall design of this intersection is not done anymore. They don't design them like this anymore. It is non-standard, and because of that, the overall level of service, that is a level of service is a standard term used for intersections, the ability, the feel of an intersection. This rates an F. And when I say an F, that's like a grade card, like report card type F. It is bad. And so that is because of congestion. That is because of volume. That is because of accidents. This has 3 times the amount of accidents that a normal intersection of this size should see. And so, within the parameters of, on the west side, if you look at the frontage road and going to the east to Hershey, Clearwater to the north and Eastland to the south, if you look at that area of intersections, there's an average of about 200 crashes per year in that area. That is a large amount of crashes. And so the city has been advocating for the last 5 years to do something about this intersection. Logically, we would be advocating for that. It has been in the IDOT 6-year plan for the last 5 years. And so because of that, we need to kind of up the ante and make sure this one really gets some attention. You'll ask, what's the next step? The next step is that phase 1 engineering study, because the first question is, well, should this look like? I'm not here to tell you tonight. That's why you don't see pictures. That's why you don't see charts and graphs. That's what that engineering phase 1 study should look like. But that needs to start. And even once that's going, it's not as if the design will be done and built in the next year. This type of project takes many years to do, so we need to get that ball rolling. So again, this is one of those projects that really needs some additional attention. Moving on to the next project.
Can I just ask you, before you move on, could you explain to them, if it has been in IDOT's 6-year plan for a long time, are we hearing anything about why it hasn't been started? Or do you hear anything from District 5?
No, they have not
Okay.
responded as to really why, but it's one of those to where with Illinois Department of Transportation, as we've indicated, even for the city of Bloomington, the amount of need that they have exceeds what, the amount of projects that the amount of need they have far exceeds their resources to be able to get them done. So this is one of those that if the council, that's what we're hoping for, that additional council action. We have Representative Brady here. He actually, it's one of the reasons he came was specifically to hear what does one of the communities in his area need. And so this is one of those times it's good for him, and we appreciate his presence here. So then again, moving to the next project is one that has been around 2012. There was a feasibility study done for Main Street Feasibility Study 2012. One of the items out of that was an interesting one that we've talked about internally as a staff, and we thought it was one that really needs to be brought out. It does cost some money for IDOT, so it does need to be in their multi-year plan. But if you look at Route 9 and Route 150, it actually goes through a residential neighborhood right by school on Lee Street. Historically, it's been that way, and anybody you ask kind of shakes their head, well, I don't know why, and then we move on to something else. Well, let's not just take it as that. Let's try to see what can we do about that. We have bench school. You take, all the truck routes. You route trucks specifically down Lee Street. Well, that makes no sense whatsoever. So we're really wanting to try to start advocating and look at what would that take. So let me tell you what that would take. So the next slide, I'm going to scroll back and forth on the screen so you can kind of get a feel for Lee Street, then back to Center Street, Lee Street, back to Center Street. What that would take in order to make that happen is the 2012 plan called for about $250,000 of state money to make that happen. We think it'll be a little bit more than that. It's going to take some land acquisition at the northwest corner to be able to make the turn radius, of that to be able to accommodate trucks, turning movements, because right now on Locust, it is an eastbound one-way in that area, in that section. In order to make that to go down Center, you would have to make it a two-way. And so that does change the traffic patterns. It changes the traffic signals. It is a low cost, we think, for a high benefit. And so it's one of those that, from a residential standpoint, if you were to live along Lee Street, we've heard from citizens over the years saying, well, this just doesn't make sense. And so it's one of those we think would be a logical move for both the state and the city. So then moving to the next project would be Clinton. It's just in general resurfacing, but let's focus on one area. Clinton Street is one of those along US 150 that is very much in need of resurfacing. We see this right now. In the next step, I'll talk about the maintenance agreements that the city has with the state, but specifically Clinton Street, Locust, others, but specifically Clinton. If you see some of the pictures, drive down on any given day. It's it just looks somewhat like a war zone. So it's just not. The city has been putting a lot of resources toward our streets. And so what we're doing is wanting to advocate with the state, please continue to funnel money into the city and take care of the state routes in the city of Bloomington. The town of Normal is different. They only have Veterans Parkway along the east and Business 51. We have 150 and Route 9. We have more state routes through our community than the town of Normal. So again, it's so many times we'll get complaints about, well, this road needs resurfacing. Yes, we agree. And while we don't have money for all the rest of our stuff, this is a state route. So we want to start to try to make sure we're advocating for a right proportion of resurfacing in our community. And so the last topic to really talk about is uninterrupted power supplies. Now what this would be, this picture with me, you have the power go out on the east side. I remember Black Friday. I was one of the unintelligent people that gets up early and does the Black Friday. And so I did that, and I was doing that for my wife, try to help out. And so it was, power went out, and all along Veterans Parkway. And it was a terrible backup all morning. And it was, just those, whenever the signals go dark, it is dangerous. It is a traffic nightmare. It causes congestion, safety issues on the high-speed roads like the state routes throughout the community. It is proper planning and best management practice to be moving toward what we call those UPS. And so that's the uninterruptible power supply. And so what that does is when the power supply goes out from Ameren, Corn Belt, it keeps the signal going. And you can't say, I can't sit here and tell you it keeps it going for 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, because it depends. Is this a newer LED signal? Those obviously use less power. They last longer. Or is it more of the old style system? So that sucks up the juice a lot quicker. But what we're looking to do is along Route 9, currently we have 21 UPS units in the city of Bloomington. Most of them are along Veterans Parkway. We do have some along College, Airport, some of the newer signals, Hershey, that we've been doing. The city has been doing those. We've been putting those in place. And so we're asking IDOT in the same way to start moving in that direction. Again, this is for the safety of our citizens, and it actually is not a high cost. So we see it as a great benefit. You can typically get these installed depending upon where the power source is at, from $5,000 to $10,000 per intersection. So for the overall safety of some improvement like that, we really see this is an intelligent advocacy issue for our citizens. And again, it's important to note, when many of these were put in place, the uninterruptible power supply was not available. So this is something that was not negligence in the past. This is a newer ability that we have. So with that being said, I'd like to maybe switch before we take comment. City Manager, would you like to talk about the agreements, or would you like me to go ahead and talk a little bit about that?
Can I just add one more, because I know this is something the council, earlier this year, approved a Tiger Grant application for Hamilton Road. Can you help everyone understand, even though Hamilton Road is not a state route, but we have in the past got a lot of state money to help develop and widen that. So I'm just thinking on Hamilton Road, Bund to Commerce, would it be helpful for the council to incorporate in the resolution something about seeking state funding to help finish that last section? Or is there some other process where that would come into play?
Well, through the Tiger Grant application, unfortunately, as we sent out an email to the council, we were not successful in our award of the Tiger Grant. So that was for this year. That was a disappointment. We can continue to try. But as the city manager said, it is always good for the council to put forth what is their desire. What do they have a strong advocacy for? So Hamilton Bund to Commerce is definitely one that the city staff believes is of good importance for this community, because it is that southern east-west major arterial road that would take about 15,000 cars whenever it's fully complete. You've got Fox Creek and Hamilton all the way across the south side to get to State Farm and the subdivisions on the far west. So it's a great road to finish up. So yes, that would be a good project to add to this.
Okay. Questions, comments? Alderman Fruin.
Jim, probably with regard to the first two, the study that's going on at veterans, that we'd like to see at Veterans and Route 9, and then the rerouting of Route 9. Even though we haven't got approval for the state to do these things, is there an educational process in the community or with Eastland Mall or those people that could very logically be impacted to let them know that this is something that we're wanting to participate in, and are we better off getting them at least up to date educationally? I'm not saying that we're going to involve them in a process that hadn't been approved yet, but somebody's got to be aware of this other than the government group.
I understand your point. That's a good, valid point. The more people that advocate for particular projects, the better the city's position. So yeah, that's not a bad idea. We will, as a staff, we'll go ahead and reach out to the stakeholder Eastland Mall and let them know what we're trying to do, and maybe we'll brainstorm and see if there's some others to make sure they're aware of this process so they can choose to advocate for it or not.
And I would think District 87 with Bent School and, again, more identification, but there's got to be a lot of people out there that could help us push this along. Thank you.
Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jim. This is a good idea to try to get some movement on some of these big projects. And I, of course, after you noted it, I will withhold any questions about what Veterans Parkway might look like down the road, but I'd be interested to see something. My question falls more along the lines of kind of the long-term process of what other types of transportation. I remember Vasu's presentation about Bent School specifically, it being in my ward. It was designed to be kind of a walking pedestrian school when it was first built. Yes, thank you. And that we was to encourage that kind of neighborhood school. And having trucks going down there obviously makes no sense whatsoever and discourages that type of a practice. But, is there anything that we can do potentially in the resolution itself to encourage the state to consider that moving forward? I mean, would we take ownership of those streets then so we can kind of do whatever we want with it, in terms of, maybe widening up some of the sidewalks, bike lanes, those types of things to encourage that original use of the building?
That absolutely can be part of it, Alderman Black. You're correct. That can be included in the resolution if that's something the council wants to take action on. The council, as we know, we're in the midst right now of a bicycle master plan. Lee Street is one of those considerations. We actually were talking about as a staff that, as we work toward that, right now you can't do that with Illinois Route 9. That's not intelligent. But if that were to change, that might open up more possibilities and make it more of a walkable area.
So if it were to, this plan would be approved as presented and we make the change, however long that takes, we would then have the ability as the city to do basically what we'd like with those routes, and we don't have to worry about trying to go through IDOT or anything?
That is correct. Well, and a good example of that is the difficulty the city has had. Whenever you do incorporate and do the state routes or even use motor fuel tax funds, there's a lot of additional hoops that you have to jump through. Whenever we did the traffic signals, you'll notice those aren't complete yet. We'd like those complete, but between whenever you start using motor fuel tax funds, there's intersection design studies you have to do. There's hoops you have to jump through to acquire property that the city can move much more quickly with. So yes, that does change the parameters that we can operate under.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Stearns.
Good to see all this, Jim. Very, very, helpful to get this overview, and certainly seem to be, good projects. Are you suggesting that Locust would, in some portions, become two-way? Is that what I'm hearing? And what would that be? The sections that are indeed Route 9?
So what we would be looking at is. Currently, Locust is two-way up until Lee Street, as you were pointing out, Alderman Stearns. East of Lee, that's where it becomes one-way. What we'd be looking at, if you look at the map, what we would be suggesting is that you would have a two-way from Lee to Center, and possibly even depending upon how to make that work. Otherwise, it couldn't work to change that state route. But there's enough lane width there for you to be able to take Locust and make it two-way in that area. The difficulty is going to be between Center and Main. It still would need to be two-way. We've actually looked at and tried to assess east of Main, there might need to be a short section up to Prairie to make some of the traffic flow well. So we're going to have to look at that. Between Prairie and Main will be the most difficult section of that plan.
And that's interesting. Any other widening, like on Clinton? I'm just curious. On Clinton, would there be any widening that you're anticipating, or is it more resurfacing, infrastructure, I would assume?
Resurfacing, with as we always do, try to make sure that the underground is assessed at the same time.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Alderman Sage.
I would just echo, I think, Jim, something that you suggested and David suggested, that idea of perhaps adding the Hamilton Road piece to that as well, because when we look at that run clear from Hershey Road west, and I know we talk at great length about the area around Hunman Lumber Mart in that section between, I think, Commerce Parkway and Bunn Street, and redesigning that. And again, the long-term benefit for that is, again, as you've suggested, is to relieve some of the traffic volume from Veterans Parkway, which I think we all recognize is very much needed. So I guess I appreciate staff's recognition that perhaps Hamilton would be an appropriate addition, to that list as well, because I think something that pretty much branches across the entire southern part of our city is probably a worthwhile addition to that. So thank you.
Good.
Actually, you'd be able to obviously go from corporate south to the interstate on a 4-lane highway without ever going on Veterans. I mean, it's huge. Alderman Lauer and then Mill Wambwe.
Jim, thanks, and thanks for all the hard work here. I guess I would agree with David in terms of trying to add that Hamilton. There is a significant economic impact that would be created on the south side as well, and certainly would be behind that as well. Would there be any benefit to making a truck route only? Are we seeing a lot of truck routes east to west or west to east through trucks on Route 9 or 150?
Yes.
Would there be any benefit to having a truck route only rerouted around either through or I-74 on the west side, I-55 bypass, or Veterans Parkway?
Right now, the state of Illinois actually has a program whenever a trucker wants to get from point A to point B, and they actually program that in where they go and they get their permits automatically. So one of the things that the city staff has reached out to, it's just good for the council to know this. We've reached out to say, what's your programming? Because sometimes some of the routes don't seem to take the best way. Because I think your point is if you can keep some of those trucks from the inner part of town, that's of benefit. So we would agree with that. And actually, that's something that would probably be a good thing to add because that would help what the staff's already been saying. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Alderman Wambwe.
Thank you, Jim. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm curious as to what the time frames would be, assuming that you get everything you need from IDOT. What would the time
Well,
frames
I'd love to
be
say
for
next year, but that's just not accurate. It's just the difficult thing with any of these types of projects, especially something like Empire and Veterans, that is a significant tens of millions of dollars potentially with a rerouting of a project like that. It really is. It's a very large project potentially. Something like that doesn't happen overnight. That is a very large project. But the point that I wanted to make tonight is it's not starting. The ball's not rolling, and I need your help to kick it down the hill. So that was the point tonight. These types of things do take time, but it's that type of advocacy that personally that I appreciate your help for this community. So thank you.
Alderwoman Schmidt.
We've had a lot of conversation this evening about Market Street and the west side, and it makes me wonder about what the scope of work could potentially be in any of this IDOT money. And is it purely roadway and engineering, or are there any opportunities for, I don't know, talk about gateways and landscaping and, some of the other things that are in the West Bloomington strategic plan? I'm trying to think broadly about this, and are there opportunities there?
Which is a good thing. I have not seen that I can think of, the landscaping, more of the gateway. Those are typically more of the grant-driven, community-driven. That's not necessarily advantageous for the state to use their money for something like that. You more want to tie that to economic development. You want to tie that to something different. But again, that's something I will commit to asking that question and looking into that. And if it is something that can be included, we'll have that in the resolution. Is that fair?
Earl can dream. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Can I just ask, I'd like to ask our fire chief, that short timer back there, Mike Kimmerling, could you come up just 1 second? And it's mainly because I want to go back to Veterans Parkway and Route 9. I think it's helpful for the council to hear from the fire chief about a increasing serious concern with emergency vehicles, especially ambulances, fire engines getting through here. And as you do so, can you also comment on, because we also don't have traffic signal preemption, how that further complicates that response time your people have in going through that intersection?
Well, Mayor and Council, I think one of the analogies I like to use in this area for our firefighters is that
Veterans Parkway is kind of like trying to cross a river. If you've ever been out there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, understand that. And so even though we have a fire station just to the east of that, our response times in that area can be very, very, very lengthy trying to get through. And we've had an ambulance that's been hitting that intersection before, where you've got that many lanes of traffic to try to cross. You know, even if the light turns green, by the time you go through the light, you know, avoiding the vehicles that are in the intersection, you end up with the light turning while you're there. Some of the other concerns with our personnel is, and I've even have our guys, sometimes they'll turn their sirens and lights off because if you can ever imagine having a family member in a car and there's a fire engine behind them with blaring sirens and horns, and they're trying to move across where the light is red to get out of their way, they can be struck too by another vehicle and seriously injured. So it is a real big safety concern with trying to make sure that we can cross through this Veterans Parkway corridor with emergency vehicles. And what the city manager is speaking of is there is something called emergency vehicle preemption systems, which are either light or they can be based off of GPS systems or infrared. And what they do is they actually cycle the light through what it allows the traffic to clear ahead of the emergency vehicle. And by doing that, you can actually let the traffic flow through and create a safer environment, not only for the firefighters that are responding and police officers, but also for the citizens who are in the general area when this occurs. So always something very, very good to consider. And Jim and I have had a lot of conversations about it. He's very familiar with it. He and his staff we've looked at some partnerships with IDOT and with Town of Normal and with McLean County to discuss use of this kind of a system long term. And there's lots of other benefits. I could let Jim could go snowplow routes. Exactly. You can use a lower priority, not the same as a fire apparatus, but when the snowplows are trying to plow snow at 4 o'clock in the morning, they have to stop at every light. You can get those lights to cycle. If buses were not on time, you could get buses and keep them on schedule. Some communities like Champaign-Urbana, if I'm not mistaken, uses systems like this to keep those kind of vehicles on time. And some of the newer systems can actually change traffic patterns for like when Eastland Mall gets busy at Christmas time to keep people from waiting in light cycles. So they're very dynamic and very, very sophisticated and would really suggest continuing that partnership to look at those things as a real benefit for community and for traffic flows and patterns and just for overall safety. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else? Alderwoman Painter, last but not least, I guess. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of the work you did on this. I think these changes look great and they're very necessary. I hope we can move forward on this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Yes.
Jim was just going to very briefly touch on these two agreements we have with IDOT and how we may need to look at trying to get greater reimbursement and financial participation from IDOT on what we're doing as per these IGAs. Jim.
So just briefly, the next two topics, there are two agreements that it's good for the council to know about. One is maintaining the roads within the city of Bloomington limits, state routes within the city of Bloomington limits. We get paid an annual stipend. It goes up every year, but right now it's about $93,000 for all of the roads. You have a list, you have a map showing all the different state routes in the city of Bloomington in your packet. But it actually pays for us to be able to snowplow, salt, take care of potholes, do the maintenance on those roads. And so those are, if you think about how much money is expended on the state routes through the community, it is significant. And so that is one of those areas that really, as the city manager pointed out, is intelligent to evaluate to make sure, the compensation amount. The agreement expires at the end of June of 2015. And so, those are the types of things that the city needs to always be looking at. You don't want to just do things the way we've always done them, at least look at that. The other agreement that we wanted to at least mention, this is good for the council to know as well, there is a traffic signal agreement with the state of Illinois, also the town of Normal, a different agreement, but the state of Illinois, there's an agreement that the city maintains all the different traffic signals throughout the city of Bloomington. We do have electricians that do the maintenance on that. We bill back the state of Illinois for a full cost recovery for what we do for our labor, benefits, materials, for the work that is done. But, that is of benefit, and I guess, it's good to say too, it's been since 2009. I guess, well, if I can say this really quick, it's been since 2009 that we've looked at timing our traffic signals along Veterans Parkway and others. It's about time that we really need to be revisiting that again as well. In about 5 years, those kind of things get old, they get stale. and citizens start to see more of a lag. I remember in 2009 how many, this is great, we love it, oh, we're moving, and now it's, wait, what happened? And that's just traffic patterns changing, and that's over a 5-year time period. That's what we're pushing. That's what happens.
I do tend to use some four-letter words sitting at a light at Oakland and Hershey, by the way.
And you, thanks is not a 4-letter word, so okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, that's not the one I was
Okay,
thinking of.
okay, okay.
Anyway, Mr. Hales, you have comments under city manager's discussion?
Very briefly, Mayor, just want to remind all the council that we are looking at holding a joint work session with the Town of Normal City Council, the Bloomington City Council on Tuesday, and I was just trying to make sure. I think it's the 21st, is it not? This will be up at the Town of Normal's City Council chambers, and it is to have a joint meeting to receive further information on the proposed Paradigm Bioaviation Waste-to-Energy Plant Project. As many of you know, city staff and I have been working on several discussions with the Normal staff on, Normal has a host agreement that they've been looking at negotiating. Both cities will have a waste supply agreement, and before bringing these agreements to the council for your formal consideration, all parties thought it would be very helpful to have this joint work session and everyone, especially elected officials, be able to ask questions of the officials of Paradigm Bioaviation. So those notices will be going out this week or next, and just wanted to remind you, I know we can't get all of our elected officials to there, but as many that can, please come and join us for that work session of the two cities.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a few remarks, and actually I have some condensed down some remarks I wanted to make at our retreat to the public and to our council. As many of you know, we had to cancel our proposed retreat because the notice didn't go out in a timely manner. And this was frankly more than an inconvenience because we had actually even Alderman Fruin changed his campaign plans, not his vacation plans, excuse me, to accommodate this. And it's very disappointing. And we certainly know that we have systems in place. Obviously we have systems in place, but we need to perfect those because this is unacceptable. It can't happen again. We unfortunately were delayed in working together, making progress working together, and communicating together. I think last year's retreat was very helpful in many ways. And beginning more detailed budget discussions. We've been delayed already to some degree in our budget discussions because we're adopting a new budget framework. And we've had some presentations about that, but we were really hoping to go forward. We're going to have to reschedule this for November, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, I do want to also say I think that there's a great deal of value to retreats, and there may be sometimes individuals who don't always see the value of retreats, but there's a good reason why all human organizations, profit-making large corporations, small corporations, nonprofits, universities, governments have retreats. It's really important for us to come together and to understand each other, to exchange ideas in ways that are not as time-limited, where we get to know each other more and different types of exercises. And that's what I wanted to kind of talk about just very briefly. I promise this is only going to be about 4 or 5 minutes. Our joint work together over the last year since the last retreat. And we've made progress on many fronts: transparency, culture change, economic development, and even on pensions, funding our police fire pensions, and solid waste. And this has clearly demonstrated and generated substantial interest from possible investors from the private sector. And especially since the announcement of us receiving the Route 66 Visitor Center money, there's lots of interest. The empirical research, however, on the subject of what factors affect companies' decisions about where to locate or where to make their investments shows that one of the most important critical pieces is the local political leadership, the elected officials, the mayor, and the city council. If a city has leaders who drag their feet or who can't make decisions, who in their right mind, of course, is going to make a multi-million-dollar investment in that community? So while we never know whether or not a particular investment project will go through until it's signed, sealed, and delivered, one stumbling block can just ruin just about everything. There has been a clear increase in serious conversations from private companies about making investments in our city, especially the downtown and the Route 66 corridor. They realize that the word on the street is Bloomington is on the move. They do their homework on us by talking to other people and investors, and they listen to the interviews. They also do Google searches. They realize that we made great progress in transparency, so they can trust us. In culture change, so they're confident that we'll be responsive. And they also see that we've made some important strides in our downtown. Over the last year, we've closed the party bus exception for open containers. We began very aggressive enforcement of our liquor laws, and in fact rewrote most of our liquor ordinances for greater clarity. We pursued a bike master plan that has already linked our downtown to the Constitution Trail and to Illinois Wesleyan University's campus, and they see we're pursuing the vision for the expansion of our library in southeast downtown, and that we passed a downtown revitalization plan with a broader vision last December. If we didn't have a plan, we wouldn't get a penny in much private investment. And of course, as I mentioned, they know that we have the Route 66 Visitor Center. Now, these and other accomplishments have been made and created the impression that definitely Bloomington's getting serious about economic development. And this renewed interest has brought us to the point where we may be asking the council to approve sending out an RFP, request for proposals, for a possible downtown hotel. We had a hotel feasibility study completed earlier this year, and we heard presentations in March. Then we had a second presentation over the summer. It was necessary, however, to move very cautiously because we needed to be sure that we had at least one viable proposal before sending out an RFP. And I've had sometimes people ask me, particularly who are downtown advocates, when are you sending out an RFP? You had this hotel feasibility study. Well, we needed many long months of discussions, creative thinking about financing, about design, property acquisition, location. And the benefits, of course, of this are huge. We're one of the few cities with 80,000 people in the Midwest where you can't rent a single room in our downtown, or a downtown. It would help us get more events at the Coliseum, which would not only be more things to do, it would be more jobs, reduce the red ink in the Coliseum and the burden on Bloomington taxpayers. It would create more jobs, more activity, more economic activity. And obviously, capital will attract capital, so we'll have more investment in our cultural historic core. Also, if it happens to be on the front and center building site, it would take a dilapidated building that our fire chief says is a clear fire hazard and turn it into a center of economic growth. And the northeast corner of that, of course, would be only about 100 feet away from the new Route 66 Visitor Center at the History Museum. If this happens, of course, this could be huge. As I was discussing this with Greg Coos last week, I said, let me kind of say, would it be fair to say that this would be the largest private investment in our downtown in a half century? And he said, no, it's probably quite a bit more than a half century. This could be a huge game changer for our center core, the Route 66 visitors trade, and the long term of our community. So as we're making progress, this is something that may be on the horizon. I hope so. There are many other projects that are on the horizon. There's definitely renewed substantial interest in Bloomington because Bloomington is a great city and we are becoming a model for others to follow. So I really wish we had had more time to talk about this in our retreat over the past weekend. We will begin this process in greater detail. It's unfortunately delayed. But the bottom line is that our work together and our progress together is what's made us an attractive target for private investment. And I think we should be proud of that progress and to continue to work for the common good of our city for the future. And I do want to, the only other thing I want to say is, Mike Kimmerling, I know you have to have your own life, and I know Beth has to have her own life, and I know you've been in stressful positions, but damn, why'd you have to leave now? But at least I got glasses before you got out. So thank you so much, and thank you for your service, Mike. I'd like to give you a standing ovation. Thank you. I won't ask you for an impromptu speech. That'll come later. Thanks, Mike, for everything. And at this point, I'm going to go from left to right, and I'll start with Alderman Fruin for comments. Thank you.
Mayor, we've got some scouts in the audience tonight, and I'm looking at one.
Before the scouts leave.
There's one young man in the back there with his arms crossed, and he was sitting up here in the front row behind the podium, and I just thought, if somebody's going to sit in the front row, they ought to get special recognition from the mayor.
Well, we got Fred Hoyt and some others, so I know there's trouble. Anyway, actually, I wonder if we could we maybe give them a standing ovation, too, to our scouts. I have an empirical question by Alderwoman Schmidt. Which troop is this? 19. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, and thanks for all you do. Great. All right, moving right along, Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the troops out tonight. I worked for the Boys Council when I was in college, so I know the organization quite well. I just wanted to talk very briefly about last week's incident on Washington Street, and I had sent over a note to the chief who got back to me. I do appreciate some of the responses that you had had. I wanted to just reiterate in public that, we're doing everything that we can using all the available resources to address these issues, hold those folks accountable that have caused these issues. The chief also highlighted a couple things that the police force is doing in the area to specifically address the crime issues, and these include establishing a problem-oriented policing in the area, having officers do extra patrols both on foot and on bike, and addressing issues as they come up, and then also encouraging whenever units are coming back to headquarters to swing through that area. And we've had a couple different citizens groups that have come through, and we met with the chief and other organizations, and they've all noted that they've seen an increase in police activity, so we are doing the best we can to stay on top of the issue. And the paper did note that the police did show up immediately, so these are important things to do. But in the long term, I remember when we went out to D.C. last year for the National League of Cities Conference, and I went to a seminar about preventing youth crime, and they had the police chief from St. Paul, Minnesota speak, and he said that when he first got the job, he wanted to spend 90% of his budget on enforcement and 10% on engagement, and then where he is at currently is it's flipped. It's 90% on engagement and 10% on enforcement. And I've taken a lot of phone calls from residents who are very upset that running the gamut with ideas of arresting everybody that's out there, or doing other things. We talked about and to strengthen up the loitering ordinance, which I'm very interested in seeing. But I think that we're going to do the best we can to create as many opportunities to keep youth off the streets and avoid problems. And this council has done a number of things so far. I know West Bloomington's done a lot. We had that youth program, the at-risk youth, about a year or so ago. So we're going to continue to keep the focus on it. It's not something that we're something under the rug. We're staying on top of it. And we're putting all resources for it. So I wanted to thank the chief and his department for getting there so quickly and keep making sure everything remains safe. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Alderman Sage.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly acknowledge three things. First of all, the council received an update from Jim Karch this past week on the whole salt situation for this upcoming winter. And I was reminded again, along with Jim, with the IDOT presentation tonight, how proactive the Public Works Department is in so many ways. And so again, thanks for that update. Not only are we going to have an ample supply, but because of some really credible negotiation done by the department, we're getting that salt at a really good price. And that's not true with a lot of other communities. And so thanks for that. Also wanted to acknowledge, because I take time to read the employee newsletter, that our chief of police is celebrating his 1-year anniversary, I think. And so, Chief, appreciate what you've done this past year with the police department, and thanks for your service. I can't see the chief, so he's probably, I can't see exactly what his expression is.
He's smiling.
Okay, all right. And then also wanted to take a second to acknowledge, I think we received some notification about our zoo gaining some national recognition for some of the programming that we do there. I think it was around the Junior Zookeeper program, if I recall. And again, that we can talk about and acknowledge the things locally that we think are doing well, as we should, but it's also nice when we get national recognition, as our zoo did here recently. And so I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge that, so thank you.
Thank you. Great. Alderman Lauer.
Just want to touch it real briefly, and I'm not making this comment as a criticism, just as a help. In terms of our notification process, might I just suggest that we lay it at multiple individuals' feet, kind of a fail-safe system. In aviation, we try to complete the flight no matter what. And it is a life and death situation if it would be not completed successfully. So we try to build that into everything that we think about. And so this certainly wasn't a life and death situation, but it certainly affected a very large portion of at least the management of our community. So might I suggest maybe IT
the communications director, as well as the city clerk, be all tasked with it, and if they all three do it, great. And if all three don't, then, boy, we really got some folks falling down. I don't think that'll ever happen. So, anyway, moving on, and I want to be real brief with that. I hope that we are going to continue to look at an RFP and an RFQ in terms of other companies, other establishments, other technologies, and other venues for our waste management. I think we're really being very, very narrow if we depend upon one technology, one company, et cetera, that basically is unproven. And so, yes, we're going to have that conversation, but I think we need to go forward looking at all possibilities and all economies of scale that might be included here. I think that's about all I had written down here, so thank you very much. Okay. All right, at this point, given the hour, is there a motion to adjourn? Wow, very quick. Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt, second by Alderman Black. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.